Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Ability Podcast with Damo Eddy. Thanks for listening. Hey, Cassie, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm great. Really excited to be here.
Yeah, totally.
It's been a long time coming, hasn't it?
It has.
We've tried to get you on here several times. So.
Yeah.
And,
Apparently, I'm hard to catch or something.
you were. Yeah. Or people were sick, you know. And don't look at me.
People have breakdowns, people are sick.
Yeah.
And apparently busy doing stuff.
Like what? That work thing?
Sit at home twiddling my thumbs.
Why not?
No, thanks for having me.
We tried that three
It's
times, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're here.
Cass, there's so much to cover about your story, hey. I think I first met you at one of your networking events.
I think it was the first one.
Potentially. Yeah, actually it was your very first one
Yeah.
with maybe 30, 40, maybe more.
35 people were
35
there.
people there, yeah. And I
Yeah.
don't know, probably on LinkedIn I found out about it or something.
Yeah.
And yeah, quite the journey from there. But you and Damien have known each other a few more years than that.
A few years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
we have.
I would say January 28, 1991.
Correct.
I researched that before today.
Correct.
Yep. Day 1, term 1, year 8.
91, eh?
1991.
Yep, 1991.
I was born in 91.
You baby.
There you go.
I heard somewhere that if you were, it's like, you know, the 60s was for us back
The same
in
gap
the
now,
90s
yeah.
is the same gap now
But to me, the 90s was
for
5
our
years.
young people.
The 90s were 5 years ago, damn it.
Yeah, wow. So
Um,
good.
Yeah, I guess, you know, we knew each other quite a lot back then, but between then and maybe, 3 years ago when we reconnected?
It was much longer than that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, in in high school, I was probably quite a different person. We were quite different people.
Ah.
Didn't expect that we'd end up here.
No.
We reconnected with our children in the hospital.
Yeah, that's
Setting.
like 10 years ago, I forgot.
More than 10 years ago.
It was 10 years ago.
Was that?
With Lucas.
Yeah.
We
yeah.
had our, you know, the Facebook anniversary.
Yes, that's right.
It came
10
up
years ago
last week, I
then.
think.
And then in business probably in the last 4 years.
Yeah. Well, I've chewed your ear off a lot about advice and suggestions in running a business, and appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, no, we've had some good robust conversations.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, life's funny, isn't it? You know, those sort of
Intertwinings.
come and go, and yeah, it's been good.
Things have certainly changed since, graduation night 1995.
Yep. I'm glad I remember it.
I had my first ever shot that night.
Did you?
Yeah.
I never drank until I was 18.
I reckon you were there when I had it.
Yeah.
Anything and everything.
So your first experience of the NDIS is
Yeah,
as a mum, is that right?
yeah.
How many
It's-
kids do you have?
So, yeah, I am a mum of 2 young men, 20 and 22 now.
Yeah,
So
wow.
Josh is 20 and Matt's 22. I had my kids when I was very, very young. You know, can't you tell? No. And yeah, obviously, I didn't deal with the NDIS through choice. It was through circumstance.
And I think a lot of people would meet you and be like, oh, Cassie, you're just like this amazing wizard of support coordination and helping people, but the reality is you got into it for very different reasons, and it was
I did.
life happened.
In fact, do you want to talk about the business stuff now
Love
and
to.
yeah, because I think it's
Whatever
good to
you
just
wanna do
jump
first.
around and
Cool.
have a conversation. I'm not afraid to say that Matt has an acquired brain injury, so he fell 5 meters out of a tree when he was 9 years old. He was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis when he was a young fella, like 4 weeks old. And so, you know, we had in our mind, you know, there were going to be certain things and certain ways that his life would play out, and then he fell out of a tree when he was 9. And so then he was on the, I guess, what you would call the state-based disability scheme.
Which you're familiar with.
Which realistically we got little to no support, and so he transitioned onto the NDIS early in the piece, and that was about, I think, 8 years ago. now. I said 8 years ago now that he was in the midst of transitioning onto the NDIS. And I had no idea what I was doing. None. I was so overwhelmed and so anxious that I didn't use his plan for the first 2 years.
Were you a bit jaded by just like, oh, it's just too hard basket, or just...
No, I didn't know any different, right? So I was one of these parents who has a young person that they care for, that they love and nurture as a mum, and that was just what I did. It wasn't any different for me, right? And that is because Matthew had so many health needs growing up that was just my normal, so I didn't know any different.
You were mum and you were help, and that was it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this concept of mentors and support workers, you know, I was very resistant to.
Just to add on to that, like, I've lived this disabled life my entire life. And even when I got my first NDIS plan, it took me 6 months to actually even, you know, they say, oh, congratulations, you're on the NDIS. You get handed this, you know, 11-page document with numbers all over it. And I'm like, cool, but how do I access any of it?
Yeah.
It's even, you say you didn't touch it for 2 years, it still took me 6 months to figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's someone that has lived the life.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised emotionally and in every other way it took you 2 years.
Yeah, and I guess you hit a good point. I had created this like Facebook community for parents and carers just to connect and support each other and share stories, because trying to navigate the health system and the social systems that we have is very, very complex and really hard. And I thought if we can share stories and help each other, then, you know, we're going to be better off, and someone, I guess, perhaps will do it a little less tough than you have to. But on your point, Damien, I was so overwhelmed, and I thought, if me, who is a privileged woman who's relatively intelligent, cannot understand this system, this plan, then how on earth are people who are vulnerable, who are in less fortunate positions, going to be able to understand it?
And can I just say right there, like 110%, that is the exact same reason why I got myself involved in this industry.
Yeah.
Because if I struggle to get services and I struggle to find the right people, and like you know, intelligent enough to figure out things and live life as normal as possible, but there are people out there that don't have that opportunity.
Yeah.
So if we couldn't figure it out, how the hell are half the other people?
Correct. That's exactly, like, completely resonates with me. And unfortunately, so I hadn't, and then push came to shove, right? Matt was really, really unwell from a mental health perspective.
Yeah.
Really unwell. He was at breaking point, and I reached out to a support coordinator, and to the mental health line, and to this person who pushed me from this person to this person to this person in the sector. Here's me absolutely panicking, I'm going to lose my son. I'm so afraid. And the support coordinator sent me 3 psychologists off of a Google listing.
Yeah.
You know, what do you do with that?
Well,
And they all have in excess of 6 months waiting lists at the time then.
When I was first looking for providers, I went to the Elizabeth office of the NDIS, and I kid you not, they handed me a 27-page document of every single list of providers that were out there, and the first one started with symbols like the at symbol, like at-home massage, all the way down to the Z. And I'm like, and you expect me to find someone out of here?
Yeah. And it's worse now, right?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. And the wait times are so much longer.
Absolutely. So I set this group up, and I thought, well, people started asking about the NDIS and that sort of thing, and I thought, well, I've got to learn it to be able to support these people. And so I learnt through the sharing and the connection and the community, and with that was I guess, a group that I'd had for 2 years. That coincided with Matthew not doing so well. And then someone from that group reached out to me to say, do you do support coordination? Because the help that I was giving in that group and to community members in that group was very similar to support coordination. And I'd been researching it for a very long time. Anyway, and yeah, so she reached out. 48 hours later, I started my business and I backed myself. But I'd done so much research before then to set myself up. I had a mentor. I couldn't do now what I did back then.
Yep.
But what helped was I'd worked in the government for 16 years in health and safety and human resources, and I'd done a lot of training and development for people. And so part of that role was understanding how to read and interpret legislation and share that and develop policy or develop resources based on that. And so I had no idea how much that would help me, you know.
So in a way, we both got into it using our lived experience.
Yeah. The other thing, yeah, absolutely.
My
It's
lived
the
experience.
only reason.
And obviously mine's different than yours,
Yeah.
but it is still lived
Yeah.
experience.
It's the only reason. In fact, you know, if I didn't have Matthew, I would be doing very different things now.
Absolutely.
The biggest push for me though was that I needed to find a job. I'd come to, I think, 2 years post Matthew's head injury. I really needed to get a job, to bring some money in. I'd created a online carers program, and that was really great, but it depended on grants and that sort of thing, which I wasn't
paying the
interested
bills,
in. You know, it wasn't. It was great creatively, but it wasn't paying the bills. But I didn't have any self-belief. I didn't think that anyone would want to employ me.
I hear that.
So I didn't think that, or that's the story I told myself, that no one would want to employ me, that I have significant responsibilities that are personal. I need flexibility in my work, and so people wouldn't want to employ me because previous to that, I'd done, I guess I'd left my paid employment about 6 months after Matthew's accident.
Yep.
I started a little small business, but it had been 2 years since I'd been in a paid workforce, and I didn't have a bachelor's qualification. So the stories I kept telling myself were that I wasn't good enough, which is BS. We know.
We're always our biggest.
We are. We
Negative.
are. So that was the push I had.
You have to back yourself. Like
Yeah.
Eddie backed himself, you backed yourself.
Yeah.
And,
And
you know,
that's what I did. So I did back myself because I didn't have any choice.
Was
And
there
it
a
worked
turning
bloody
point
well.
for it?
Pardon?
Was there a turning point for it, or was it just the fact that you needed, part of it was just the push of circumstances?
It was the push of circumstances and my fear of putting myself out there.
Beyond Plan Managers help make your NDIS journey simple. With Beyond Plan Managers, you can experience personal, quick support from a dedicated team. No big call centers, no hassles. Beyond Plan Managers will handle the admin so you can focus on what's important. If you're looking for a seamless NDIS experience, click the link in the description and choose Beyond Plan Managers. BHA is redefining disability supports with a focus on human rights. BHA is committed to providing education and accreditation by using our lived experience to enhance the lives of people with disabilities through a human rights-based approach. Our team of dedicated practitioners aims to transform the sector by elevating human rights as a benchmark. So join BHA in creating a world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. Click the link to learn more about our mission and how you can be a part of it.
We all have fears. We all, have that imposter syndrome.
And nobody wants to fail.
No. No, they don't. But the biggest lessons are in
It's to fail.
those failures.
I always like, my youngest, he hates losing
Yeah.
on the PlayStation.
Yeah.
And I always tell him, you have to learn to lose before you learn to win. You have to learn
Yeah.
to lose graciously
Yeah.
and learn to win graciously. So when I play him on the PlayStation, I don't give him any,
Yeah.
extra, here, have a goal. That's not me.
No.
And eventually he beats me.
Yeah.
Because he gets better.
Yeah.
And then he celebrates like he's just won the World Cup because he finally beat Dad.
Yeah.
So it's the same with us. You have to learn to fail to be able to learn how to win.
Yeah, and I think that sort of is related to the fear side of things, right? And so coming back to the story about us meeting.
Yes.
Yeah. So along the way, along the journey, I've learnt probably over the last 10 years that when I fear something, when I'm resisting something, it's exactly where I need to be able to grow and to level up. And so the reason I'm saying that is because for years I had my business, I was running my business and I hid. Right, I wasn't out there publicly. I wasn't out there.
How long were you running it without, like, in the shadows?
So I did the social media stuff.
Yep.
Started the business. So did the social media stuff. Started my business at the time, the Carers Place, in March 2016. Right, so 8 years ago. Started support coordination in January 2018, and in November 2021, I held my first networking event.
Was that your first time putting yourself out there?
For a long time. In that way, for a long time. I had done it previously and I lost all my confidence. And the reason I did it was we were post-COVID. I was yearning connection and I was so terribly fearful. And I knew that in order to get what I want and what I needed for my soul, was that I had to just lean into that fear.
How did you come to that conclusion? Was it a conversation with someone, or was it just a knowing within yourself?
It's a knowing. So it's after climbing lots and lots and lots of mountains.
Yeah.
I'm a deeply reflective person.
Yeah.
And I probably have always been like that. And when you go through some of the really tough stuff that I have and that I've faced, you build your resilience through reflecting and learning, right?
And not that there's anything wrong with anything external, but there's something powerful in being able to be an honest mirror in your life and make space for yourself emotionally like that. It's a very challenging and uncomfortable space, especially when we live in a world where we all have a phone.
Yeah,
and you're 2 seconds away from a distraction.
Yeah. And I guess, you know, that fed into like the group that I had or different things I've done in my life. But I was so fearful. I knew that I would be good on stage. I knew that I would. And that's because I was going to be an actress when I was younger. I was going to be a theatre.
You should have seen that drama class. You know drama, mate. That was fun.
Yeah, it was. But what helped me sort of get to that next point of actually putting something on was Justine from Plan Tracker. So she very much wanted
we've had on the podcast.
Yeah. Right. So she really wanted to do something as well.
Yeah.
And I just needed that little nudge,
She's
of confidence and accountability.
Yeah.
And she's an extraordinary person.
Yeah.
And I think she knew that I could do it. And, you know, just gave me that, I guess, safe space to be able to do it. And I winged it. But we were post-COVID. Nothing was really happening in our sector. People were needing to come together and share. And one of the things that I really dislike is networking events. Funny that, because I've put these big networking events on for 2.5 years, right?
But I could imagine why you wouldn't like them.
Yeah, and so I don't like them because, okay, well, you're going to flick a card and be all professional and not actually be down and honest and connect. And so one of my big goals around this was just do it differently, put it all out on the table. Yeah. And I don't know if you remember in that first event that we held, I told everyone to leave their ego at the door, that there was room enough.
Rings a bell. It literally does.
Everyone leave their ego at the door.
Yeah.
There's room enough for us all.
Yeah, I do.
You know.
Yeah.
And to get real. And to get real. And it's like, who the heck do you think you are? And I was totally fearful, but it was bigger than me. Right, so whatever we do is so much bigger than us. And I use that as my comfort and my safe space to go, it's actually not about you, Cassie. So drop it. You know, you've got to do it because other people need you, or other people need for you to help them do the next thing.
I used to love networking. A, obviously I like to talk, but B, at the end of the day, if me as a support coordinator could connect with Eddie as a physio and you as another support coordinator or a specialist support coordinator and an OT and a physio, at the end of the day we're all helping the same people. It's not about finding out who your client base is and trying to steal them away.
When you read the stats on our vulnerable community, you realise there is like a point where we must represent those people.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
By doing
and if we all work together, we're actually producing a better life for that.
Exactly. And they're the things that I tried to set about doing, and I think that particularly in the first year of doing those events, I feel like the sector changed significantly in how they communicated and worked with each other. And for that I'm really, really proud.
Back then it was very much hush.
It was sales, right?
And these are my clients and this is my money.
It was very territorial. It was sales and very territorial.
That's sort of when I first started.
Yeah.
When I first started going to those events.
Yeah, and I really wanted to change the tone because one of my greater visions is have a really positive impact on the sector, right? So it's not about me, it's about many people and how do we do that? And so I think that has changed the landscape here in South, not just me, but I think that was certainly pivotal in changing the landscape of not only what we were talking about then, but how other organisations do it as well, how our other organisations hold networking events or educational events or forums or whatever it is, you do it.
It's been fun.
Which is great, and that's what I want. I don't want it to belong to me, and that's what I meant by there's room enough for all of us.
I guess in a way it's what we're trying to do with this podcast, is show that everybody can work together and come together, talk about the same things, talk about, our life history, and you'll find out very soon that a lot of people in this industry have actually lived very similar stories.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much lived experience within our sector.
And that's with people running businesses, but also participants of the NDIS.
Absolutely, which I love. I love that. The first 3 people that I hired were parents of people who were on the scheme who were my clients. So we found them a new support coordinator and they came and worked for me. And they hadn't worked for a long time, right? So they were like me.
Same deal, just the way
probably, a couple of them hadn't worked at all or for 10 years, because of their caring duties. And they were so afraid of letting go of the safety net that is the welfare system, and carers pension, which is bloody incredible to be able to have that. But they were so afraid of, what if my child gets sick, or what if this happens and I need to do this and I need to do that, and how can I do that and be employed, and all those things that I had fears around. And so I really set up to have a flexible working environment for those people and train them from the ground up, and they have incredible careers. One of them has their own business now doing what we do. Another is, leading another organisation, and it's just incredible to be able to give that back to people who are either carers or people with disability. I've had a number of people in my organisation have disabilities, and we have to get people who are disabled or who are carers into mainstream employment. And part of that is a mindset of the sector, but also of those people. And we have a responsibility to be able to coach and educate and help change that mindset, that no one will want me, or I'm not good enough, or I don't have any skills. We have to, as a state, in other states this happens, we have to do skills recognition.
Absolutely. And then I've been working, as a business owner or as just an employee for the last 4 years, and there are still companies out there that would hire me, but only hire me because I would then become their token cripple, And my last 2 jobs, I was that. I was their token cripple, and yes, I'm saying the word cripple, because that's what I was.
It's just like, it's just like, look at the class, we're like, oh God.
I'm allowed to. I'm allowed to say it. But
Shit, dang it.
at the end of the day, I was the token person in the wheelchair that covered all their, crossed their T's and dotted their I's, and it made them look good. But they're the ones that are chasing the money and nothing
Yeah,
else.
it's just gross. And you can see it a mile away too.
Where I am right now with employment
So
is
good.
the best damn place I've ever been. It's the best team I've ever worked with. And I am absolutely 110% not a token of anything. I'm just another person that works here.
You're a facilitator of a
Yes.
service that is desperately needed.
And they are using my lived experience in the way that I've always wanted to use it.
Yeah. And I think we can underestimate our lived experience
Absolutely.
and the value of it. And that's been one of the biggest lessons over the last 10 years.
And there are
8
people out there with lived experience that have gone even so much more than what I can offer that would just absolutely benefit from being employed by these NDIS providers.
Yeah, absolutely. There's benefits all round.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
On the carer side of things,
Yeah.
was there a big barrier for you as a mum to like let the NDIS plan do its work as a mother? Like,
As in to let go. And
yeah,
let someone else
as
take over.
parents and
I've never
have
let
those
anyone take over. You're
services.
so funny.
Well, you know what I mean, though? Like,
And
to
now,
let services.
Yeah.
you allowed other people into your life.
What are the examples you can think of that you worked with?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Yes, in some ways, but it's broader than that for me. I'll give you a few examples. I was quite happy to get some help, for Matthew, but my perception of that help was, from a therapeutic perspective. But the fact of the matter is that he was a teenager when he transitioned into the scheme, and he was not interested in any therapy. In fact, he wasn't interested in any service or support at all. And so it's been a slow burn with him.
Sure.
And it's actually been a mixture of getting mainstream and NDIS services, but over a really elongated period of time.
We're actually going through that with my number 14 at the moment.
Yeah, and my advice would be to give them space. Because what teenager wants to, be in therapy all the time? What is it saying subconsciously to them? There's something wrong with me, there's something wrong with me, there's something wrong with me. So we need to find innovative ways to connect them with people who are going to help them, learn and grow and not be so vulnerable, or, I guess address some of the challenges they have, but in really different ways and not in that clinical room, in that clinical setting, right?
That's the battle my boy's going through right now. He's sick and tired of being dragged out of classrooms because he has to go see his developmental educator or his speechy or whatever. So now what's happening is he's turning into the class idiot.
Yeah, he's going to rebel.
Because it's getting him positive attention in his eyes.
Well, I would say that that's communication.
Yeah.
That's him saying, I'm not okay with this. And I think it's probably, there's an attention component there.
Absolutely.
But he just wants to be like everyone else.
He just wants to be that rebellious 14-year-old boy and, wag lessons here and there and, and that's what he's doing at the moment.
All behaviour is communication, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And Matthew was the same. He was just over it. And one of the best things I did, I know it's controversial, was to back it off and let him be. The other thing that's on the line for parents, which is really tricky to navigate, is if you push so much, what are you going to get? You're going to get resistance. And it gets to a point where you're pushing against each other and your relationship is at risk.
And it will never repair if it breaks.
Right? So it's a really fine line, and you have to trust yourself. And I think you have to shut out the noise from everyone else, right? Oh, well, he should just be doing this, or he should be just doing that. He just needs blah, 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 blah. And you know better than anyone what they need, and, you know, trusting yourself more and allowing yourself to back yourself and back your child, as opposed to doing what everyone else tells you should happen. If I did that, I'm not sure Matt would be here.
Yeah, I can completely
And Josh as well, for different reasons. It's hard. They're the hardest decisions.
And would you say with Josh, it's because he's the older brother?
He's a younger brother,
Sorry,
yeah.
The younger brother of an older brother that's got problems where mum's attention has been 100% on.
Man, it is tough to be a sibling.
Again, my eldest, my daughter, she's 16, and she quite often likes to remind us how she's treated differently than her brothers, and it's really, really hard.
Yeah, it is hard, but it's also important not to be hard on yourself, right, as a parent. The fact of the matter is, we treat each of our children differently, whether we like to admit that or not. We will treat each of our children differently, right? Yes, it is one of the toughest things in the world to be the sibling of someone who has a disability or a chronic illness or something, right? It is. And, you know, because it's not so much what you can see, it's the messaging that they receive and interpret, right? We are meaning-making machines.
Absolutely.
And so if there's something missing, we're going to make something up.
Yep. You know, and I absolutely dread sometimes, you know, what goes on in my daughter's head, because she reminds us all the time that she's technically the only normal one living in that house, because she's got two brothers on the NDIS, a mum and a dad both disabled on the NDIS. You know, so I would hate to be in her head.
Yeah, but I think she's probably also a very resilient young woman.
At the same time, there's that side of the coin where I would like to think that eventually it'll make her the best person in the world.
Probably already has.
Let's get past 16.
It probably already has.
Yeah.
For Josh, you know, and your kids as well, unfortunately, as humans, we never escape trauma. We, you know, it is the human experience to be up and down and go through tough stuff.
And there's so many levels of trauma.
There is.
Losing a goldfish to losing a loved one.
Correct. Josh was there from, you know, from the time he was born. He was separated from us every time Matthew went into hospital. Matthew used to be in hospital 4 or 5 times a year for 3 weeks at a time. I was a single mum from the time that they were 3 and 18 months. And so Josh was shipped out, and, you know, one of my parents lives far away and the other was away for quite a while, so I had to rely on friends to help with that, because they didn't see their dad, unfortunately.
Yep.
So he's gone through a number of traumas, and the separation anxiety. He was the only one there when Matt fell out of the tree.
Yeah.
He saw that, you know, and that was, no one was around because they'd run off from my mum and run up a tree and fell out. And, you know, Matt was laying there and he didn't know if he was alive or not. He was the only one there. He was 7 years old. That's a lot. But, you know, both of my kids really struggled through school and the schooling system because they're self-led learners, and you know, our boys love to run and jump and touch and feel and experience things and learn through that way, as opposed to through a sit-down academic. What I now realise is that I have ADHD, Matthew has ADHD, and Joshua has ADHD, and I found out because I was trying to support Joshua, and I realised that, you know, I pretty much knew that he had ADHD, and I was recognising my own behaviours in him, and I'm like, oh, how do I understand him so well?
My wife has actually been going through the same thing recently, because, again, our daughter, she's showing a lot of ADHD things, and then my wife is like,
hang on a minute.
I do the exact same shit, you know.
So school was difficult for Josh, and got to the point where he was at this crossroad where I could either keep pushing, you have to go to school. He was wagging anyway. You either push and push and push and you have to do this. But meanwhile, the kid, when he was 14, got a full-time job, a job at KFC. He had the opportunity to work there full-time from the time he was 16. And so do I push him to be in school and he will go down a criminal path, I know it, because he was teetering on the edge, or do I back off, protect our relationship because it was really rocky and it was because of school, and trust that when he's ready to step up and into his life and learn and you know, develop a career, and trust him, and he can go and work full-time in the meantime, which one do I choose? Do I choose to push him at school, even though it's the right thing to do, or do I put my trust in him, back off?
And he was earning money the right way,
and
the legit way.
Absolutely. And he's, so, you know, he's like 20 and he's worked for 6 years for this company. And he's right now in that transition when he's ready to take control for himself and move into a career. Right? And so that it doesn't mean, you know, let your kids do everything. You need to have solid boundaries and expectations, and kids need clarity around that stuff. But your relationship, and whether you let NDIS in or whatever, you have to manage that with the relationships in the home and that sort of thing as well. And so when I'm talking about doing things creatively and innovatively, it has to work for everyone. You're going to say something?
It's just super interesting hearing it from like a parent, not only a parent's perspective, but the like how unique every kid's situation is, and how it takes such a unique sensitivity of not only a parent, but like trusting, like educating parents maybe, but like like the
it's
parents
hard.
know. You know, like,
they do, and I mean it's not easy. You know, Matthew sat in his room, like he ended up at middle of year 11, complete school refusal. We'd tried everything. He was sick, but he was also not mentally well. And I think it was 3.5, 4 years he did nothing, and he sat in the darkness. He would leave home occasionally for family things, but that was against his will, you know. And then all of a sudden he came out one day and said to me, "Mum, I want to learn." You know, and he's 8, you know. He's 19, nearly 20. I want to learn. Okay. What do you want to learn? Well, I don't know, because he'd been so shut away from school and people and community. He didn't know because of so much hospitalisation.
And the fact that he said he wanted to learn.
I want to learn.
Great start.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's unpack this. And so I think we talked for about 2 hours, which is very unusual for him. Okay. Well, what do you want that to look like? Do you want it in a classroom? No. Do you want it one-on-one? Absolutely not. Small group? Yeah. Okay. And so we just, I just asked him questions. So leading with curiosity rather than putting ideas in his head is just, what does that look like for you? And okay, well, right, I've got some information here. I went away, went and found a bunch of different things, and okay, here we go. No, I don't want to do this, this, and this. Oh, well, how about this thing? And it was You Think, and it was a school, mainstream school, so no NDIS, in the city, and they meet the person where they're at. It's an experiential school, entrepreneurial school. I didn't have a fixed mindset on it. Took him there, which was massive to get him out of the house. He walked in like this. He was just not okay. I walked, this is the control thing, right? Letting go of control and trusting your kid. Walked into the meeting with the principal. We were in there for 2 minutes, and I could see Matthew was just, shutting down. Yeah, hiding behind me. And I said, so I'm just going to go now because this is actually a conversation between you guys. And I walked out, and they had a conversation. Came out 20 minutes later, we had a tour. We walked out of the doors, and my kid was 10 foot taller. He was like up like this, and he chatted the whole way home. And it was the first time I'd seen him have a future for himself. But he had the choice, right? He had the choice, and all of his other supports have stemmed from there. So it wasn't actually an MDIS support that started that. Well, it kind of was, but it was his psychologist that got him to the point of understanding himself and going through 2.5 years of therapy to get him to the point where he was ready to do something else. But that was the only NDIS support he'd had for a really long time, was that psychology support. And then all of the other things have happened since. Now he hid away, and now he has finished high school, and he's volunteering with Operation Flinders. He's learning to be a mentor. He's about, in 2 months' time, he's about to go over to Tasmania to walk the Overland Track, which is a 6-day trek through outrageous conditions in the most beautiful part of Australia, with his girlfriend. He has a girlfriend, his brother, and his mentor. Right, it's nuts. Because this time 2 years ago, he was on a sliding scale with his health. 18 months ago, because of his cystic fibrosis, he's very, very, very sick. He was on IV antibiotics for 3 months, and he was on that more than he wasn't. And then he was finally able to access this drug that we've been petitioning for and advocating for hard.
I still remember all your Facebook statuses when it was approved.
Yeah, hard. We had gone very hard for it. $300,000 a year drug, which has changed his life.
Yeah, wow.
So he hasn't been in hospital since. That's nearly 2 years since he's been in hospital.
Wow.
And he's living his best life, right? Which is crazy that he was so very sick. And, you know, I arrive here today with the ability to be a mum and not a carer anymore, which I feel so privileged, because I thought that would be, you know, we would be on the downhill and I would be supporting him. I am a carer, but, you know, it's just different from a health perspective and a mental health perspective. He's so much better off.
That's good.
It's like huge.
Yeah, it's massive.
It's huge. Yeah.
And I don't know, I believe everything in this life happens for a reason.
Absolutely, I agree with you.
You know, I believe you and I were meant to run into each other in the cafeteria at the hospital.
Oh, mate.
Like, because we've been able to bounce things off each other ever since, whether that's personal or business. And,
Yep.
you know, before, I'll start that again, like, as a parent that's disabled and a partner who's disabled as well, before we had children, you know, we were told by a few people, oh, you know, disabled people have disabled kids, right? You know, it's the worst thing you can say to anybody. And we had our daughter, and she's, you know, as normal as a 16-year-old girl can be. And then, you know, we had our son. He ended up being diagnosed autistic at 6. But then first, my 10-year-old, as you know, he contracted meningitis at the age of 6 months.
Yeah, that's when we met.
Yeah, at the cafeteria. And it was probably like the first day we were even at the Women's and Children's.
You were in it rough at that time, but it was just happening.
It was absolute shit. And
I'll never forget that.
no, but like, I believe we reconnected for whatever reason the gods made it, you know, and here we are today.
Well, we had many, many, many conversations in that cafeteria.
Absolutely. And you were great
And
for my wife as well.
maybe I was there for comfort or
You know,
a safe space.
You were great for my wife as well, because there were things that she was going through as a mother that as a dad I was never going to understand. You know, I was very much he'll be right, you know, being the dad, you know, but legitimately he could have died at any minute. You know, to the point where the hospital chaplain came in to give him his last rites.
Yeah.
So how do you think when that's happening?
Yeah.
You know, so I
And
just,
having someone who's gone through that experience, but not the same experience, but
No, but
gone
you-
through the hospital system, know how to advocate for themselves, or if you say something and I go, well, that doesn't sound right, how about you ask this, or, you know.
and yeah, I just believe after, 20, 25 years, we were supposed to reconnect.
Yeah, without doubt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, without doubt.
So it's been good.
Yeah, and so had I started the business then, or is it about to?
Nah, you were all about your boys at that time.
I still am. Come on.
No, like for you, that was
Yeah, that was my obsession. Apparently, I get a bit obsessive about these things. I don't know the different things.
Maybe it's an ADHD thing.
Highly likely.
Unlock a seamless NDIS experience with Plan Partners. Say goodbye to paperwork hassles and hello to quick reimbursements and exclusive benefits. Our app and online dashboard make managing your NDIS funds easy, ensuring you maximize every dollar for the supports you need. Choose Plan Partners for expert advice, simplified fund management, and a focus on your goals. Click the link in the description to get started. Tibby is reshaping disability supports by using the human rights model. We believe in delivering support with you, not just for you. Join Tibby, where everyone's unique humanity is valued and supported. Contact Tibby for all your disability support services and click the link to find out how we can make a difference together. I'm finding it really interesting hearing from you that just because people have a plan for a child and maybe just because the child might be struggling or not struggling doesn't mean that just a knee-jerk reaction to use the plan is what is best.
And use the plan and use all the money quick. If we don't use all the money, we're going to lose it.
It's an attitude, right? Yeah, you use it, you lose it, or like, I've got to use this, I've got to
Well, it's an assumption.
do stuff with it.
It's an assumption that people make, and there is a lot of fear-mongering out there about using the plan, and if you don't, you're going to not get the same amount of money again. In fact, we're walking evidence of the opposite. I think things for people change monthly, yearly, daily, what have you. And we've got enough tough stuff to deal with without worrying about whether we're going to use the bloody NDIS plan or not. If there's not enough funding there, that's a different set of circumstances. But mostly, when you're going through a review or whatever you're doing and you haven't used all of the plan, you explain that, you explain the why and what the needs are now, and you can demonstrate risk and need. You're not going to actually lose money, you possibly will have it increased quite significantly. And so for those parents who get so upset, and even people with disability who get so worked up or worried about having to have all of the therapies and everything in place, or they're going to be doing the wrong thing, or the NDIS is going to be looking at them this way or that way, it's just not the case at all, and it's just putting more stress on you than you've already got a massive load. Our lives are not NDIS, right? Our lives are not NDIS. Yes, it's part of our lives, but it doesn't have to be the central point. And I think some providers can get to the point where they're so obsessive over it that is passed on to parents or carers or people with disability, and it's not everything. It's a part of our lives. And if you're being pushed to use your funds, I think it's a big red flag, particularly if it's a support coordinator saying you need to use these funds now, we need to use these funds now. Then they probably don't have the skills to be able to navigate and negotiate through plan reviews and understanding the fundamentals of the scheme and why we're here in the first place.
Yeah, it's just really interesting hearing, because I'm hearing it from you, not only from this is what I think, but then I'm hearing the story of what you experienced of it, and it just makes sense.
Yeah. So Matthew's using his plan more than ever. He's got a plan that's probably far too big for him now because he'd had that external help from a mainstream support. That's okay. That's okay. And then if his needs change and he needs more or he needs less or whatever, his plan will change, and that's okay. But let's not obsess over it, and let's not make it about the NDIS. Let's make it about his life and his experiences in life and him thriving.
Make it about the individual as to why there's the NDIS in the first place. Right.
Let's make it so really they don't necessarily even know the NDIS exists.
Yeah.
If I had the exact amount of funding that I needed, I would happily stick to that for 5 or 10 years and not even have to speak to the NDIS.
Mm.
Unless there was an urgent change of circumstances, that's different. But I would rather just not even deal with it and just know that all my support's there and that's all I need.
Yeah, it's a bloody stressful scheme to navigate.
It's way more stressful than it needs to be.
Absolutely, and I know that they've had a review and they're doing changes and that sort of thing, but I don't think it's ever going to be perfect. It's still a scheme in its infancy. It's only 10 years old.
I also think we as the individuals make it so much harder than it needs to be.
Yes, amen to that. Absolutely. We do.
So, let's get down to the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
You have had a lot on your plate.
Yeah.
Probably even, let's say, over the 20 years, not just 10 or 15. You know, let's say pretty much 2 years after you left school.
Yeah.
Yeah? Tell us how you got to be Cassie Day of today.
Of today?
Of today.
You want to talk business or?
Every aspect.
Oh.
This is what people pay to watch.
I got into university to do teaching, and I couldn't think of a worse thing than sitting in a classroom for another 4 years.
That's why I didn't go to uni.
I got into do teaching or communications, but at the same time I had the opportunity to get a government traineeship, which I took. Because we lived far, far away from the university. I didn't have any transport to get there, so it would have taken me about 2 hours to get there, 2 hours to get back. I had to support myself because Mum didn't have, a lot of spare cash. And so I decided to take the traineeship, which landed me in the role of like an administration trainee in the Minister for Employment, Training and Further Education at the time. So DTAFE it was then. And I did exceptionally well in that. This little upstart walking the halls of Parliament was, pretending I knew what I was doing, but I didn't really. But it was great. It was a great opportunity for me. I applied for a full-time position for TAFE at O'Halloran Hill at the time in human resources. Just after I finished my traineeship, I was on contracts within the department still, so I was still employed, working in the city, and I applied for my first permanent role in an area that I had no idea about. It was very particular in a human resources environment, very, very particular. I won that role after having to postpone the interviews for a week because I got food poisoning the night before my interview. They were fantastic. They employed me. There was someone in the role, so they weren't very happy. They continued on as a casual, and I came in as a 19-year-old upstart who thought differently, really differently than a lot of people there. And it's only now that I reflect back on
You
that.
ruffled a few feathers.
Yeah, I did. So
Has anything really changed though? You still think differently than everyone else.
I know, and this is the interesting thing, and I learned why last year. I think I learned why last year.
Give it to us.
I'm going to finish this story though. So I did really well in HR, learnt things quickly, could apply, split myself between a number of different things, learning all of those things on the go and doing things concurrently, which did ruffle some feathers, but I think it also won me some fans. The leaders that I had within TAFE and the managers that I had within TAFE really fostered my growth. They were incredible. And so I was this 21-year-old training all of these lecturers. I didn't have any qualifications, mind you, but here's this 21-year-old training everyone on how to facilitate recruitment and selection. And, I was supported to, do you remember CDs?
Oh, of course I do.
VHS, CDs,
Yeah,
PlayStation 1, I remember them all.
So CDs were a big thing, right, back then. And I created a training program for people in the public sector to be able to know how to apply for a job and win a job and go through the interview process. So I created this whole training program and we put it on CD, and my HR department, who would never earn any money, we sold it across the public sector.
Do you still have
So
any,
entrepreneurial spirit back then.
do you still have any copies
Somewhere.
of the CD?
Somewhere.
You
Oh,
mail
how
them
embarrassing.
out, mail them out to
So
people.
yeah, so we had them in paper. We had paper. Yes, it was all mail out, paper resources, and a recording.
We
And
are-
you're in the video, yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
You've got to get us a copy.
Oh, I'll have to see if I can find one. Which is, you know,
She knows where it is, she's just hiding. She's
No,
delaying.
it's
She's delaying
fascinating.
from...
Mate, when we get a hold of this, we are outlaying it to everyone.
and I found myself in a team leader role up until I got pregnant with my son at 23. As a team leader in that environment was pretty decent. And then I had my son, and my intention was to come back to work. And my husband, or my partner at the time, would stay home. And it didn't work out that way because Matthew was diagnosed with CF 4 weeks old, and things just changed. So I went back to work part-time, but things were never quite the same again. I was still beautifully supported
How
by
old are you at this
TAFE.
stage?
24.
Yep. Wow.
24, just
So young.
24. And then, you know, I did go back to work part-time though,
Yep.
which was difficult, but I did it. And then I had a surprise pregnancy a year later, so Joshua and Matt are 21 months apart.
Cool.
And so, yeah, I spent, you know, quite a bit of time supporting them, and I was, you know, we talked about the obsessive mum and the doting mum. I was definitely that. I put everything into my kids, but I also had a creative side. So, and a need to still be relevant and learn and use my brain. So when Joshua was 4 months old, I started studying to be a naturopath. I'll tell you why. So I could understand Matthew's body and not so much his condition, but I could interpret the information that was being shared with me about him and his body and his condition and the medications and all of those, so I could advocate appropriately for him, which is interesting. Anyway, fast forward to the boys being a little bit older, and I was given an opportunity to move into a team leader role in the health and safety section of TAFE, and I was doing that for quite a while until I sort of said, I can't do it anymore. My kids have needs and I need to be there for them. And 6 months after that, that's when Matthew had his accident and fell out of the tree. And so it was a long recovery process for him. I had some leave without pay. But when I went back to work, everything was different. My perspective was different. Everything was different. And I looked at the world in a different way. But during that 6 months of him, before he had his accident, when I had sort of said I need to, leave this role, I really focused on looking after myself. So movement, nutrition. I'd lost a heap of weight, and so I went back and I just this isn't right. This isn't for me. I need to be helping people. So I resigned from TAFE, which was really bold because that was my security. That was always my security, and trained as a personal trainer. And I forgot 4 months after Matthew's head injury, my husband and I separated as well. Not their father, but my husband at the time, and I separated. So I was going through all of that, navigating all of this change. That was 2012, but it was probably the best year of my life in amongst all the tough. There were so many lessons, and there's always reasons for shitty things to happen, there's always reasons, or there's always something behind it. There'll be a light, you know. And that was the changing of my life in a really positive way. You know, I met my husband now. Sorry.
Was it tempting to stay at TAFE?
Yeah, but
And not take a leave?
yeah, it was. But in my head, I was done. And once I get to that point,
You knew. Yeah.
I can't get it out of my head. It's like it's a thing, a feeling, a being.
Yeah. Okay.
So I left TAFE.
Yep.
Took my kids on a cruise. This was a year after Matthew's head injury. Took my kids on a cruise with my family. Trained to be a personal trainer, and started my own personal training business early 2013. Matt got really sick 18 months later, and I had to shut that down. It was so successful. 3 weeks, I was completely full. From the time that I put it out there, it was like it was nuts, just crazy.
That's pretty phenomenal.
It
takes time, and 3 weeks is not a lot of time.
No, I was full, and I had full group training sessions as well as individual PT. But he became really sick, and I had to have some time off, and that's what sort of got us to the point of just before I started the business. You know, we talked earlier about me starting the Carers Place and having created that group. So there's this time between having to stop my fitness business, having to fully focus on Matthew, which was really, really, really hard for me, and then starting the Carers Place. So that gap in between when he did get well, we hit the road for 10 weeks, and we just went, and we travelled the East Coast, tried to homeschool the kids, you know, that relationship stuff that I was talking about. That was out the window pretty quick because it was really, really tough. And they were getting so many life experiences and lessons on the road anyway, right?
Sure.
And so we travelled, and I got a lot of it. What am I good at? What can I do where I can give to people, where I can have positive impact, but I don't have to be at a specific place at a specific time every single week.
Let's just wait for that. Oh, it's gone now. Down.
So I don't have to be at a place every single week. What do I know really well? Well, I know how to be a great mum, and I didn't know that. I had just sort of understood after the head injury. Jesus, I am. Stop questioning if you're a good mum. How do I do positive things in the world without having to be one-on-one with each person? And we did this travel, and I had this sketchbook, and I dreamed and wrote ideas, and I scribbled, and I designed all sorts of different things. And you know, I know nutrition well, I know movement, I know when you need to look after yourself in order to give the best of you, because that was my lesson of 2012. That's why I say it was one of the best lessons one of the best years of my life, is because whilst I went through all that tough stuff, I learned so much. And the biggest thing I learned was I have to look after myself to be able, for Matt and Josh, to be able to be their best selves, right? So I knew all of those things, and I know how to be, I know how to look after sick children, and it just sort of came together. And I'd gotten a online scholarship for online business to do this course, and through that, I created the Carers Place.
Was the course helpful?
Yeah, it was, and it was more helpful with the connections and the conversations as opposed to the content.
Okay.
Right? But I learned so much, and a lot of it was actually about mindset. And so that was all concurrent while I'd had that group, the Facebook group, etc., etc. And when I said to you, someone reached out to me and said, do you do support coordination? They'd been in my group for 2 years. I had no business being in business. I didn't know what I was doing, but many of us don't, right? And we have to back ourselves, and we learn. And I asked a lot of questions of a lot of people, including accountants. Don't worry about it, it's just a hobby. Yeah, but I'm asking, I need to know, I don't want to do the wrong thing, and of course I learned everything the hard way. And that's why I love helping other businesses now, so that they can circumnavigate, get away from
You do it all
the
a little
tough.
different.
Yeah.
Did you also have a fear of when you were starting your business? Of,
Yeah.
Oh God, here she goes again. Another 3 months time, it'll be another idea, or
No.
nothing like that.
No, I was so driven.
Good.
I was so driven to help people. Like it was what I was good at.
Good.
You know, just deeply passionate about helping people.
And it was going to succeed no matter what.
Yeah, but it was never going to be big. It was going to be me.
Yeah, well, that didn't work out, did it?
No. So for those of you who don't know, I have a support coordination agency. So the Carers Place was born in March 2016. Support coordination started in 2018. I've nurtured many people into their own businesses, so lots of support workers and mentors, either personally or through my coordinators. We've helped many people understand NDIS, how to navigate it, how to set up a business. We've helped countless people, I would say into the thousands of people, directly or indirectly. I've had many people come through our doors where we've taught most of our support, not all, but most of our support coordinators from the ground up to set up a business that I would want to work for and that I would want to receive services from. That was really important to me. And when I went through these plan reviews and when I set up systems within the business, I did it just bit by bit, and I used my knowledge from TAFE and how government need to and like to receive information, and married that with a lived experience, right, and delivered it in that way. And so I talked about developing a program for carers and parents. I used that, but I flipped it, right? So instead of doing the parent-carer online training, all of those supports were still provided to the parents just as part of the service. They didn't pay any extra for it, but it was just, so rather than only focusing on an individual in a family, we look at supporting the entire family, right? Which is actually the role.
And that's what needs to be supported.
That's the
Because
role.
if you're only supporting one, the rest of the family can still implode.
Correct. And I've always said we are in the business of relationships.
Yes.
And if we don't nurture those relationships, if people don't feel seen, then what? Nothing. You're not going to engage anyone. And it's been really interesting because I've had support coordinators come and work for us before. And so we'll still do training and we'll still do, the induction and that sort of thing. And they're really surprised, particularly at that intake where, I have been quite specific in the past about how that intake is facilitated, and it's about building a relationship first. I want to know who you are, what lights you up, what gets in the way, and if you don't know what lights you up, because that's really tough for a lot of people,
Absolutely.
then we go backwards and we help them. And so, if you can close your eyes and think about what made you smile when you were a kid, or, and we start there.
It's like asking someone, what are you
It's
good
a
at?
tough question.
Like, what are you good at?
Yeah.
So many people do not have an answer.
Yeah, so then it's what brings you joy. Let's start there, because if what brings you joy, if you can combine what brings you joy and the things that are challenging for you or get in your way, those barriers, if you can use the things that bring you joy to address those things, you're going to be so much better off.
Eddie, what are you good at?
I can talk to anyone. So I'll go to anything like a family barbecue or an event or just somebody on the street, and I could start a conversation and find a common ground
Dude, say,
straight away.
I can make a best friend at the bus stop that I've never ever met in my life,
Yeah.
and 5 minutes later they just know everything about me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that my wife's like that. She finds it really hard. And it's sort of surprising because I'm just like, I don't even have to think about it. I watch and hey, what's up?
Dude, my wife is
Yeah.
exactly the same.
Yeah.
She hates how I can
Yeah.
talk to people so easily.
Yeah.
Whereas
Fascinating.
my wife generally hates people in general.
You see the introvert battery draining really
Yes.
quickly.
Whereas
Like as soon as they,
as you know, like I'm pretty much an extrovert.
hey, what's
just
up?
like
Yeah.
you. And it's probably why we get on so well.
Yeah, it works.
But I have no problem talking to anybody
Yeah.
about anything.
Yeah.
talking, if someone said to me, what are you good at?
Yeah.
I would really, really struggle besides, I don't know, driving my chair.
That's why I said, like, you know, I said what lights you up, or probably wouldn't
Oh, for
use
me.
that language.
For me,
but
for
what
me.
makes you happy?
For me, that would
makes
be
you
my
smile.
family.
Yeah.
My family lights me up and makes me
And
happy.
what makes you happy or made you smile when you were younger? Was it music?
Yeah, that's it.
Right.
Yep, absolutely.
So we start there.
Yep. Yep.
So you start there.
Yeah, definitely.
And you connect around that. You talk around that, and do you know what I mean? Like, because you've got to build trust first.
Eddie actually had a question to ask the both of us the other day
Oh.
Oh, about
music.
About
Back
music,
in the
yeah.
90s.
So what was
What
your
was that?
soundtrack of the 90s? Because I'm just picturing like Damien with a mullet listening to Nirvana. but I'm curious, what is your soundtrack of the 90s? Because you're both 90s kids.
Yeah.
Yes, and let's go back to the other thing after.
Okay.
I'm not a control freak at all.
Just like
Soundtrack of the 90s.
I reckon it was.
Or like high school.
Yeah, like, that's, yeah, obviously that was our 90s.
Nirvana.
Nirvana.
Yeah.
A little bit of dance was starting to come
Definitely dance.
Like Ace of
rhythm.
Base.
Rhythm is a dancer. I don't know if you remember
I remember
Alison and I getting up, and because I did dance and
Yeah.
drama,
Yes.
and so I was always doing performances on the stage.
I remember rhythm is
So,
Yeah.
So,
And so we did a duet, and we choreographed. Oh, that brings back a memory. Actually, wait for it. We choreographed a dance to "Rhythm Is a Dancer," and the music stopped halfway
Yeah.
through, and we kind of had a bit of a tantrum, and then we kept going, and then we won.
You can't picture Cassie having a 14
So
year old
good.
tantrum, can you?
it's such a good song. It's such an iconic song.
Talk about tantrums. Here's my 14-year-old tantrum. I was literally 14.
Okay.
I came to Marion High School. One of the biggest things I wanted to do was drama, dance, and be in a rock and roll Stedford.
Yeah.
So in year 8, we weren't allowed to be in the rock and roll Stedford, which was devastating to me. Year 9, got in. The school decided that, I think it was 2 months in, that we weren't going to do it anymore.
What is it?
Well, it's like this big spectacular, it's to music, it's choreographed, it's a
Yeah.
big stage production.
Okay.
It was held in the Festival Theatre, like it was a big
It
And
was.
it's excited you've already started prepping for it.
Yeah, so I'd gotten in, I was like, yes, this is going to be great. I was going to be one of the, just the side dancers, because of course we had the year 12s and 11s
Yeah,
in
of
it and
course.
whatever.
The big girls
And boys.
and boys. Sorry.
Anyway, so they decided on the theme that I knew nothing about. It was the Pearl Harbor bombing, so it was a history thing. It was never my strong suit. They decided on the theme, they decided on the music, that we'd started choreographing, and then they pull it. Well, I wasn't having that. I went and petitioned the school, and I ended up coordinating and choreographing the entire rock and roll of Stedford
You
for
can't
the
imagine
school.
that.
Let's go. Get things done.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, I
unionising the
am
school.
not having that. And they're like, well, if you want to organise it and you want to do it, then you can, but it's all over to you.
Challenge accepted.
So I did the lot. It was costumes and
Still Pearl Harbor?
design. Yep, we had to. We couldn't
Yeah, I
change
tell you
it.
that history.
Costume design. The school didn't let us in on the weekends, so I organised for everyone to come to the school, and so it was Marion High School, so there's still the Cosgrove Hall there, and there's a concrete part under a big shelter, so we would practice there, or on the tennis courts, practice our dance,
Yeah, 8 or 9.
9.
I remember concrete.
That's really cool.
I look back at that, and I've still got a card that my
Holler
dance
year
teacher
12s.
gave
It
me.
is.
Still have that card with her words in there, and talking about my leadership and
That's
my
cool.
ability to bring people together.
Do you
And
still have
it's
any
amazing.
of our yearbooks?
yeah,
Because
baseball.
then we can show everyone who this,
Mm.
Cassie Day was back then.
Sounds good, man. Sounds good.
She was a good girl.
Anyway, okay.
I was actually.
Yeah, you were-
I actually was a good girl.
I won't go into it.
We got 12.
12
12
All right,
minutes.
so I'm going to go back to looking
Where's
after
place-
people.
Where's it going as well?
Yeah, okay. The intake I always will ask at the end if we're with parents or carers, and how are you? And that's a really confronting question for many people, and it kind of trips them up. But it's not meant to do that in the hopes that they feel seen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that we can then understand a little bit more about the dynamic of what's going on at home, because there's so much focus on.
A lot of parents don't get asked that question though, because it's always
It's
about the kids.
imperative.
Yeah.
It is the most important question. And that builds connection and trust immediately. So, you know, that always been specific, but quite particular about that. I've succeeded, I've fallen, I've failed, I've picked myself up and dusted myself off so many times it's not even funny. I've taken big risks, massive risks, and they haven't worked, but the lessons that I've gotten from them have been more valuable. There was a big hard one last year that hasn't worked because of the changes to the NDIS system. I was setting up a franchise for the Carers Place, and with the announcement of the review and the recommendations of the review, it fundamentally changes how support coordination will, not so much the delivery, that wasn't a problem, but how it will be funded. And you can't run a franchise in that way, and I was just hoping to provide more ability for quality support coordinators to be able to work less, have quality time with their participants, and have a really great foundation and support system to be able to facilitate that. So that was really tough. And at the same time, I have lost a lot of staff because of the challenges of the sector at the moment, and people worrying about their careers and what next. So many have gone into behaviour support or gone elsewhere, and that's taken a really huge toll on me. It's taken a really huge toll, and I've done a lot of soul searching over the last 6 months. Lots of changes have happened, and with the NDIS review where it is, and me sort of really looking at that from a pragmatic perspective, support coordination agencies need to be strong, they need to be robust, they need to have strong collaboration with other organisations that are only doing support coordination for clients and staff to have safety and security in their roles. Last year I did a lot of supporting people in business, and that has been exceptionally good for me. In business, I've evolved over time, and I've really missed being at the coalface and being able to support people and help people one-on-one. That's one of the big things that I've missed. But I'm a fan of collaboration and communication and community, and I guess I feel like I've brought community together over the last few years and have developed some exceptional relationships. And it's through those relationships that I've collaborated with another organisation to the point that I've sold the Carers Place.
Dang.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think it is, or I know it is, just such an incredible move from my perspective, but mostly from the client's perspective and from our staff's perspective. This is an organisation who are equally, if not more passionate than me about support coordination.
Explosion sound effect to that.
They are strongly values aligned and have an incredible support system set up for staff, which in turn is a real positive for clients. It's huge. I'm excited. We will still collaborate, but the Carers Place won't go anywhere, so the Carers Place brand will stay. And on the 11th of March, the Carers Place will have new owners.
Sweet. Are you disclosing who the owners are at some point?
Yeah. I'm happy to share if you.
Please do.
Yeah.
Please,
So Colin and Sam from One Good Day and Onside. So you probably don't know of them. They are a provider in the eastern states.
I've Heard of
One
One Good
Good
Day.
Day.
They do recovery coaching.
They
already.
do. So One Good Day, Sam heads up One Good Day. It's recovery coaching. They've got 5 here in the northern suburbs of Adelaide at the moment, but they've got a big team on the east coast and some over in Western Australia as well. And Colin heads up On-Site, which are support coordination agency only. They've got 160 employees. And are outrageously passionate about supporting people with disability and about doing better in the community.
So all those participants that are part of the carers place aren't just going to get lost with, you know.
They'll be better off. I 100% believe that they will be better off.
So
there's so much more security, right? There's solid structures. We're such a small agency. So to be able to, I guess, support the evolution of the carers place through the next thing that they need, which is, you know, a strong governance model, but great support systems behind the staff. We're not big enough to do that, and to be able to move through the next phases of change in the NDIS sector, I need to be doing something different, and they need someone who's super passionate about that, but I need to get back to peopling.
So what would you still be hanging around then?
You can't get rid of me that easily.
Yeah, very interesting.
I don't know. So I'm going to climb some mountains,
Maybe
and
when you first sell it, maybe like a transition period, or
No.
you just here you go.
so we're in the middle of transition at the moment.
So you're just going to be here, have at it, and
Yeah, so we've been working really closely together for the last however long. You know, with some business acquisitions or sales, it can be quite, you know, them and us, and like.
Yeah, I've watched the TV show Succession.
Yeah. I couldn't have asked for a better, more collaborative transition or process. The communication has been exceptional. The respect from both sides has been phenomenal. We have just been in this partnership of growth and change together. And there's a lot to be said for being upfront and clear and honest about what it is you need and what you're looking for, and rather than fluffing around. And I have had a tendency to do that, but one of the big things that I learned on my leadership program last year, I did the Governor's Leadership Program, was, you know, to be clear is to be kind, and so really back myself, right? So it's not the people-pleasing stuff, which I have a tendency to do. It's, right, this is what I'm looking for, this is what I want, this is what I need. How do you feel about that? Right, really powerful conversations, and that has led to a real trust between us as two different organisations. They've come in and met the team and spent some time with the team, and I could see probably within 10 minutes of them meeting the team, you've got to remember this is tough stuff to hear from the team, right? Really confronting, and they've been through a lot of change in the last 6 months, so it's been really tough for them. I could see, you know, 10, 15 minutes in, their energy had changed. They relaxed. The next day, better again. They can see the genuine authenticity coming through from the owners, and so it's really helped that. But I'm not going anywhere.
Good. That's all I wanted to know.
I don't know. I'm going to go away in a caravan for about 3 weeks.
Yeah, good on you.
Open heart, open mind.
Yeah.
Climb mountains, connect with nature, do a lot of reflection, do a lot of writing, which I've really, really, really missed, and then I'll see. I don't know yet, and we'll see what opportunities come up, but I think whatever I do will continue to help people. I'll continue to support the sector and business, and write, but other than that, I don't know.
Cool.
How that looks is anyone's guess.
All I can say is just wow and congratulations. Like huge congrats, because I know personally how much you put into Carers Place. You know, and I think there's no better way for us to end this chat and podcast and I think it's been fantastic, and
Yeah.
you've given us the biggest bombshell we've ever had so far.
Yeah. And thank you. Thank you
you.
for and I speak for our listeners as well. I thank you for your contribution to our sector in bringing people together, in focusing on the positive and the real change, and for being so honest with us. Because that's been the thing that's kept me coming back to the genuine connection to the community, is you leading with your story and your heart and being wildly vulnerable with us all, and it's set a tone in the community
It's made
that
us all
this
try
is
harder.
and this is how we need
You
to
pointed
be.
a lot of people in the right direction, whether you know it or not.
And it hasn't been pointing people to you either. It's been
No.
pointing people to the values-driven
Yes.
approach,
Not-
and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, what a
Yeah.
how refreshing.
Absolutely, and it's not.
Oh, Cassie, talking about values again. How about that?
And it's not a case of you pointing people,
Yeah.
telling them they're doing something wrong. But like Eddie just said, it's about values and passion and being driven. And once again, with you meeting the new owners, everything happens for a reason. And you met them for this reason.
Yeah, I've been in communication with them for a couple of years, really making sure that they're the right people.
Again, thank you so much for coming on here.
Yeah.
It's been
Thank
fantastic.
you. Thanks for having me. I
It's a shame
appreciate it.
story.
Yeah, you're welcome.
See you around.
You will.
See you
You
on the
will
podcast
see me.
again sometime.
We'll have to have an update in the year, see how much is.
I'll be taking over. No.
Hey.
It'll just be called the Cassie podcast.
The Cassie Day.
She's already got her own podcast ready to go.
Don't start your own podcast and try to take over.
That's another story for another time.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you.
Peace.